Welcome back to my channel, guys. This is True Crime and Chill with me, Prince Teddy. And if you are new here, hello and welcome. This is True Crime and Chill, where I come to talk about some of the most chilling crime cases in South Africa. And so if you want to keep chilling with me every week when I upload a new video, then I highly recommend that you subscribe to the channel and also follow me on my other socials, which I've put up on the screen, so you never miss another upload. Now, let's get into it. Now, this case is one of the most well-covered cases in media, so much so that there's a lot of information about it out there. So I chose to focus only on the important stuff. So if you want to know more about it, then I would highly recommend that you go and do your own research about it. But after watching the video, of course, and also subscribing to the channel if you are new. But yeah, it's been covered a lot in media, but we're going to focus on only the important stuff and not so much on the other details. So let's go on and get into it. So this case is about the horrific murder of a 28-year-old woman by the name of Anni Dewani. Anni was born on the 12th of March in 1982, and originally she's of Indian origin, but she lived most of her life in Sweden and did a lot of her education there. So in 2009, Anni went to London, where she met a man who would later become her husband, and this man was a successful chartered accountant by the name of Shrien Dewani. So the two got to know each other better in London, and they ended up dating, but they had to do it long distance style. So they were in a long distance relationship because, well, Shrien was in London, but Anni had to be in Sweden, until in 2010 when Anni finally decided to move to the UK to be closer to her partner. So she moved to the UK in March of 2010, and just about 2 months later, in May of 2010, the couple got engaged to each other, and then they got married on that very same year. So now Anni Dewani finally became Anni Dewani, which is the name that she was more known as throughout the case. So after tying the knot, the couple decided to come have their honeymoon right here in South Africa. And so they took a flight to Cape Town, and they arrived at the Cape Town International Airport on the 7th of November in 2010. But as they arrived, they took another flight to go spend a few nights at the Kruger National Park. Then just a few days later, on the 12th of November, still in 2010, they then went back to Cape Town, where they met a minibus taxi driver by the name of Zola Tongo. And they wanted Zola to drive them to their hotel, and they stayed at a beautiful hotel called the Cape Grace Hotel. Beautiful place. Wish I could have been there, but beautiful, beautiful place. But while checking into their hotel, Shrien then stepped outside for a minute to go talk to Zola, and apparently they spoke for about 10 minutes. Now keep this in mind, guys, because this is going to be very important as the case goes further, so keep that in mind. They spoke outside for about 10 minutes. And then the touring couple decided to keep Zola's contacts so that they can use him as their unofficial tour guide around the city of Cape Town and maybe the surrounding locations as well. So they were going to have him drive them around. So on the 13th of November, they then called Zola again to come and take them to a restaurant in the Strand known as the Surfside Restaurant. And to get to this restaurant, they had to pass through the township of Gugulethu. And then they decided to have some dinner at the restaurant, and then later on at 10 p.m., that's when they decided to leave. But strangely enough, they decided that they wanted to take a tour around the township of Gugulethu, which is not really known for being the safest place to drive around in that late in the night. But Zola ended up agreeing to it. However, things were about to take a turn for the worst, because just as they stopped at an intersection waiting to get into the main road, two men armed with guns approached the car and they ordered them to open up the car. So they got in the car with them and they ordered Zola out of the car. Just after driving for a few minutes, they kicked him out of the car so they can focus their attention on the touring couple. Shrien was robbed of his money, his wallet, his designer watch, as well as his cell phone. So They robbed him first, and after robbing him, after just 20 minutes of driving around, they also kicked him out of the car the same way they did to their driver, Zola Tongo. Shrien said that after they kicked him out, that's when a bystander helped him and they managed to call the police as the two hijackers were driving off with his 28-year-old wife, Anni Dewani. So on the next day of the 14th of November in 2010, a community member saw a VW minibus just standing on the side of the road with no one coming to claim it. And it had been there for quite a while. So she found this very strange and she decided to call the police to come and check it out. But sadly, at exactly 7:50 a.m. in that morning, the body of Anni Dewani was then discovered at the back of that VW minibus with a single gunshot wound to her neck. And she was pronounced dead at the scene. And it looked like the bullet had gone through her hand and grazed her shoulder and then went straight into her neck, and it went all the way through, so she may as well have bled to death, but she was already dead when the cops came and found her. And as the police investigated the scene, it was made to look like a robbery because Annie's possessions as well were missing. Her wristwatch, her bracelet, her handbag, as well as her cell phone appeared to have been stolen. So now the hunt was on for the people who were responsible for the murder of Annie. And it didn't really take long for the police to make their first arrest. As a matter of fact, it only took them until the 16th of November in 2010. So just 2 days from the murder, they made their first arrest. And they were able to do this because they found some prints on the car and they discovered that those prints belonged to a man by the name of Gugulethu. So Mgeni was then arrested and then he was taken to the police station to go get interrogated. And after a while, he finally admitted his guilt on videotape and his involvement to the crime. And he went on to describe both Annie and Shrien as the victims of that night. And then afterwards, he ended up giving up his accomplice, a man by the name of Mziwa Kwabe. He ended up saying that Mzi, I'm going to call him Mzi for the rest of the video because his name is just way too long. He said that Mzi is the one who killed Annie because they were struggling for her handbag. But keep this in mind, guys. There's a lot of other sources out there that say differently. Some sources say that Gugulethu is the one who was accused of shooting Annie. Some sources say that due to faulty forensic evidence, Mzi is the one who was held responsible as the shooter of that day. But one of them definitely shot Anni Dewani and killed her that night. It's just that it's a little bit confusing regarding who took the shot. So in the early hours of a Thursday morning on the 18th of November in 2010, police received a tip-off from a trusted community informant about the whereabouts of Mzi. And so Mzi was arrested between 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. that morning, and he was taken to the station for some questioning. So after Mzi was arrested, he tried a couple of times to deny his involvement in the whole crime until finally he gave up and he ended up giving out the name of a third person that was involved in this case. And the name of this third person that he gave up was the name of a man by the name of Monde Mbolombo. And Monde was a hotel receptionist, and Monde was then also arrested on the same day that Mzi was arrested. But he got arrested later on in the day because remember, Mzi was arrested in the early hours of the morning. So Mzi, like Gugulethu, described both Annie and Shrien as the victims of that night. However, he ended up changing his story and saying that there was only one victim of that whole incident, and it was actually Annie and not Shrien, because everything that happened on that night happened on the orders of Shrien Dewani. So this really wasn't a hijacking and robbery gone wrong. It was actually a planned murder. And then not long after that, Monde also gave the same story that this was actually a planned murder by Annie's new husband, Shrien Dewani. You see, it turns out that the couple wasn't actually that happy after all. And as a matter of fact, Annie once opened up to her family saying that she felt like she had made a mistake marrying this guy. And even before the wedding, she tried to call everything off, but her family convinced her not to. Remember the taxi driver, Zola? Well, it turns out that Zola called the police station, a nearby police station in Gugulethu, and he described himself as the victim of that crime as well. Until the next day, when he decided to confess that actually he also was involved in that whole thing. And it was all a planned murder by Annie's husband. So now all these guys were telling the story using the same name. Zola said that Shrien approached him and wanted to know if he could help him out with some hitmen who could take out his wife. And Zola said to him that he had no resources at that point to do that kind of stuff, but he knew someone who might know a couple of guys willing to do the job. And this person was Monde Mbolombo. So Shrien then said that he would pay 15,000 Rand to any person or for any person involved in taking out his wife. And that's how Monde got involved. Monde was approached by Zola, and Zola was asking him if he knew some hitmen, and Monde organized the meetup with Xolile and Mzi, and then the plan was set in motion. So remember that 10 minutes that I said that Zola and Shrien spent talking outside when they were checking into the Cape Grace Hotel? Well, Zola said that is when Shrien approached him, wanting to know if he could help him kill his wife. And so now there were 4 men giving the same name of Shrien Dewani, saying that it was all a planned murder under the orders of him. And then afterwards, that's when Zola went to see Monde about the whole thing. And then that's when Monde got him in touch with Xolile, like I said. And then they put everything in motion. And they even decided on the location because, well, everything was planned before it had happened. Even the whole thing of going into Gugulethu, it was planned. So during their trials, both Mzi and Zola were given plea deals of reduced sentences if they gave truthful testimonies against Shrien Dewani, which they agreed to. Monde, on the other hand, was given immunity if he agreed to help the police throughout the entire investigation, which meant he faced no prosecution at all. And I don't know how that makes any sense. That is just crazy if you ask me, but he faced no prosecution. I mean, of course, he's guilty in some way because he's the one who organized the hit. He's the one who called up Xolile and Mzi, but somehow he was given full immunity. But that's how everything went down. And if you think about it, Zola Tongo is the only credible witness to this case. He's the only one who can actually link Shrien Dewani to everything because he's the one that Shrien was communicating with the most. And there's a lot of CCTV footage that shows them communicating back and forth with each other. But one footage in particular shows them meeting up with each other at the Cape Grace Hotel on the morning just before Annie's body was discovered. And according to Zola, they were meeting up because Shrien wanted confirmation that the mission went as planned. And so they even kicked out the hotel cleaner who was in the lounge with them, and Shrien told him that they wanted some privacy. So obviously, what they had to talk about in that room was something that they didn't want anyone else to hear of. So the state's case also weighed heavily on the words of Zola Tongo, but it was said that he gave a lot of inconsistencies and lies in his statements, in his testimonies, and it kind of made the whole thing shaky for the case of Anni Dewani. Zola Tongo got sentenced to 18 years in prison. Mziwa Matoto was sentenced to 25 years in prison, and it was said that he will be eligible for release in 2027. Not that far away. Xolile Mngeni, on the other hand, got sentenced to life in prison because, again, it was decided that he is the one who took the shot that ended Anni Dewani's life. And somehow there was some mistakes that were made with the forensic evidence that suggested that it was Mzi who shot Annie instead of Xolile. So now the decision was overturned once again, and it was said that Mzi is not the one who shot Annie, but it was actually Xolile who shot Annie. But then it was discovered that Mngeni was suffering from a terminal brain tumor, And so because of this, his lawyer tried to file for a medical parole application, which was denied. And then Xolile ended up dying in prison on the 18th of October in 2014. Now, when it came to Shrien Dewani, he had to be extradited from London back into South Africa because he didn't even stay in the country during the investigation. He decided to go back. So he had to be extradited. And then after the long process of trying to get him back into the country, he finally had to stand trial when he got back in the country on the 7th of April in 2014. He was facing 5 charges, which were conspiracy to commit kidnapping, robbery with aggravating circumstances, murder, kidnapping, and obstructing the administration of justice. And of course, he pleaded not guilty to all 5 charges. During Shrien's trial, the state's witness, Zola Tongo, kept giving a lot of contradicting stories and testimonies, and this gave Shrien's lawyer the chance to capitalize on this. And he argued that the charges against his client be declared as inadmissible due to the fact that there is no credible evidence that directly links his client to the murder of his wife. So I was just like, okay, so all the CCTV footage that we talked about and the CCTV footage that's actually out there doesn't mean anything. Like, it doesn't show that these people clearly had a lot to talk about. Like, that was just wow. So then on the 8th of December in 2014, the application for the dismissal of the charges against Shrien Dewani was granted. And just like that, he was a free man. He was acquitted of all charges and he was exonerated. And even today, he's currently a free man. And at the end of the trial, the judge commented that the only person who was credible enough to directly link Shrien Dewani to this whole case gave evidence that contained a lot of inconsistencies, mistakes, and lies, so much so that it was hard to tell where the lies ended and where the truth began. And so because of this, his testimonies in court, his statements as well, did not really hold any significant weight regarding the case. And just like that, and because of that, Shrien Dewani was let go. Annie's family believes that Shrien was not truthful about what really happened that night, and they also believe that he was not truthful about his involvement in the murder of their daughter. And what also broke their heart was the fact that they didn't even find out from Shrien himself that their daughter was kidnapped on that night. They had to find out from his father when he called Annie's father to tell him what had happened. They were expecting that if something like this happened, they would have heard it from the person who was there and not had to wait to hear it from his father. And another strange thing that Annie's sister in particular spoke about was the fact that Shrien claimed that it was Annie's idea to explore Gugulethu at 10 p.m. at night. And she said that it couldn't have been possible. It couldn't have been Annie because Annie was very cautious, especially when it came to places that she had never been to before. She would have never taken a risk like that. So it definitely wasn't her idea to go explore the township at 10 p.m. at night instead of going back to their hotel. And remember that in the video I did mention that they were not really that much of a happy couple. And according to their culture, divorce is never an option. So could this have been the only way out that Shrien saw when he thought about ending the marriage? I'll leave that to you guys to decide. But yeah, guys, that was the case and the story of Anni Dewani. And I personally think that, okay, yes, justice was served, but not all of it. Okay, not all of it. Yes, the men who were involved in the crime, in the murder, were sentenced, they were put in jail, but not all of them. But that's just my personal opinion. But yeah, guys, you can also have your own opinions about it. And thank you for sticking around to the end of the video. And again, if you are new here and you want to keep chilling with me again when I post more videos, I highly recommend that you subscribe to True Crime and Chill. And follow me on my other socials as well, on Instagram at princestudy_onyt and on TikTok at truecrimeandchill_. So yeah, with that being said, I will see you guys when I upload another video again. And until then, stay safe, take care of yourself, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.